who don't know me, I'm Harriet. I am one of the 22 hire apprentices that we have in the firm at the moment. You might know my name from some nagging emails that I sent you over the last sort of 8 months about timesheets or variances. But it was in a foundation leadership meeting that I was asked to potentially do a TED talk. And I suppose thinking about what I could offer you guys as graduates, as very successful people that offer sort of amazing client service to PwC clients, what can I, as a lowly school leaver, offer you? So for me, it was going to have to be a personal experience and something that has affected the way that I have led my life and affected the various decisions that I've made at junctions that potentially could be controversial. So I have undergone the process of talking about stereotypes. Are they a friend to us, or are they a foe in personal life and in business? So I first, I guess, was stereotyped and understood the concepts of stereotypes when I was quite young. I was 6 when I first asked the teacher, "Yes, what's a stereotype?" And what she said to me was really, really interesting and has struck home with me, and I'm still very good friends with this teacher. She said, it's a way of people making themselves feel less vulnerable about their inadequacies. It's allowing them to put you in a defined set of characteristics through their assumptions and your appearances to enable them to react in a way that they see fit. So that got me thinking. Throughout the years, people have judged me and have made assumptions about me based on my front of house face, what I portray, what I look like, what would be on my CV, where I went to school, what town I grew up in. So I had to think about what would people look at and perceive when they see me. So this is, in essence, me. Genetically, I'm half Welsh, half English. My dad is Welsh, so this summer Rugby World Cup is going to be interesting if Wales continue their abysmal performance. So again, you could say, oh, lives in a valley, she's been caught in an uncompromising situation with sheep. But I've never been to Wales. The closest I've been is the Cheshire border to meet my great-grandfather who lived in a village which was very aptly known as Mould. Yeah, it was disgusting. So, and I would say the English flag does represent me. I've always lived in England and in London. I was fortunate enough to go to a very nice school in Berkshire called Wellington College, which at the time that I went, it was the first year they'd had any females in the campus. It was known as a place where slightly rebellious boys go to feed their drug habit, and the main academic syllabus was rugby. So I went into a boys' house with 10 other 13-year-old girls, and for my first year I pretty much just had darts thrown at me as I ran through the common room to lessons. But they soon learned that actually we could be helped to them as well. I then found an interest in hockey and music. I have sung in some professional operas and have directed professional operas. So I'm not a big, fat, middle-aged lady wobbling on a stage, hopefully. You don't think that. I've also played a high standard of hockey, and I have had experience as a trained army officer at Sandhurst. So at Sandhurst for 18 months after leaving Wellington, and was trained for 6 months, and then undergone a syllabus change where I had responsibility of the 400 new soldier cadets who were 16 to 18. The boys come into the infantry regiments. They've never touched an iron. They've never had someone say no to them before. And I was a woman, and I'm 5'1". Didn't go down so well. They soon learned that we can work together. So, this is the bit where I try and interact with you. I know it's the kind of graveyard pitch. We are 5 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. We're thinking about the pub. But please try and interact with this situation. I'm going to show you a photo next. If you're easily shocked or grossed out, then you don't have to look. But please try and engage with your innate instinct, your gut instinct. Try and let down your social barriers of what you can and can't say. Understand what your innate instinct is telling you. We'll look at it, and then I've got some questions for you to think about as well. Some questions. How did it make you feel? Anyone?
Shocked. Concerned.
Concerned? Shocked? Sad?
Sympathetic.
Sympathetic? Jesus. I feel sick when I see it. So that's me. I was born with a melancytic melanoma, which is one of the most severe forms of skin cancer, which actually can cause more secondary cancers than any other cancer that we know of so far. So I was 18 months when that picture was taken, and as you can see, it's not the nicest thing to see, and it's fairly obvious because it's on my face. So did anybody just not feel anything at all? Was anybody just emotionally numb? Also, nice, encouraging. We have empathetic people here. Were you shocked by your gut reaction? Was anybody slightly uncomfortable with their innate reaction? Ian?
Yeah, I felt uneasy. I felt like I didn't want to.
Do you want to look at it? Yeah, it's interesting. Anybody else? No. Lastly, was it hard for anybody to try and let their gut feelings out? Was it hard for you, even if you eventually did achieve it? Did you think, oh no, I can't say that? And maybe some of you haven't said what you felt because you feel there's a social pressure on you not to say it. Some of you probably worked out it was me. No? Gosh, you're all nice people. So, I'm going to take you through a personal journey, because again I said earlier about I'm going to try and use my personal experience to try and give you some insight into perhaps what stereotyping can do to us as human beings, and eventually try and answer this question, friend or foe. So when I was having the most of my operations, when I looked like that, the picture before, I said I was 18 months. So what I found was, in the age of sort of 0 to 3, children have no understanding of what is right and what is wrong, and there is no expectation of normality. So I was at nursery the day before that operation happened, chilling in the sound booth with everybody else, and the guy next to me was just like, oh, you're right, yeah, fine. Everything's fine. Nothing, no second look, absolutely fine. This changes slightly when you get to sort of 6 years old. So at 6 years old, your parents perhaps have told you, you know, oh, granddad's got half a leg because he had an amputee of the war, but, you know, we're fine about it, but it's not normal, or don't look at that woman in the street because, you know, she might be a bit scary, so let's just walk on. So kids start to tend to be quite inquisitive, but it's in no way a malicious way. They just want to understand. I was talking to Lindsay earlier, and some people, when they get to a certain age, and they discover the word why, and it tends to be about 6, and they go, why is that? Why is that? So the inquisition is not malice at all, but then as their questions are answered by their role models, their parents, they create this, what we now call is a sort of primeval protective sort of reaction that, okay, I know that is not normal. I know that in my community or in my society, that is absence of norm. They are out of the circle that we have it as our pack. So at the age of 9, I went away to boarding school. I went away to a very small boarding school in Surrey called Cranley Prep. Some of you may know the senior school. And this was a very interesting time because I was on my own. I didn't have parents there to go home to every night to say, Mummy, this person said this to me at school today. What should I do? How should I feel about it? There were 5 boarders in a school of 600 people, so it was pretty much just me and 4 kids. So this primal evil instinct, the isolation, the threat to society really came through for me, and I tended just to play a lot of sport and be on the stage and practice, because I didn't feel like I was one of them. I was seeking that sort of satisfaction of being able to be one of them, but I soon found out that wasn't really going to happen. So I thought, well, I might as well use my time more effectively. And then it came to mid-teens, and people, by the time you get to your mid-teens, you're 13, 14, especially girls, I'm going to stereotype it, girls are very image conscious, right? So when you're going through puberty, I'm sure boys are the same, but I say it's only personal experience. People tend to have quite malicious stereotypes, and they will voice them. And what I found the worst thing was they wouldn't voice them to me, they would voice them to other people. And that just made me really defensive. That made me have this kind of bravado, confidence. Well, I don't care. Like, you can say what you want, but I'm still confident. I'm still a really good sportswoman, and I'll do the military, and I'll tell you what to do, and you have to do it because I'm in my uniform. That was the way I dealt with it. Not ideal, but we'll get to that later. And then, hopefully, as you guys acknowledged, and we learned from the questions that we had earlier today, is you get to this point in adulthood or maturation where you have this thing called social conditioning. So you are told by society that you may have these stereotypes, but they are softened by the fact that you know that you shouldn't be voicing them. So that as you mature more and more, and I hope, obviously, as you've got to hear your PwC employees, you are empathetic and you can work with people. We're all different, so you have overcome those stereotypes. And maybe by going to university, you've experienced more diverse groups of people. And as a result, your stereotypes have softened. So that's what I've experienced, and I think as I have matured, I have had to mature more quickly than my age group. But I've also gravitated towards older people. So my best friend is 32, and she's about to have her first baby, and I'm going to be the godmother, which I'm really scared about. So that is a personal experience of the stereotypes. But I guess to conclude, what I wanted to offer you today is an insight into the pros and cons of stereotypes. So, are they a friend or a foe? To me, they have been a friend in the sense that I have been able to truly experience both sides of the story. I can understand how we all judge because we do it on an hourly basis. I wouldn't try and tell anybody not to make those assumptions because, quite frankly, we have this fight or flight instinct. It would be really vulnerable to do so. They've also been a friend to me because they've driven me to try and constantly exceed what people expect of me, whether that's going into the military and being an officer as a 5'1" brunette small girl, whether that's going to boarding school at 9 because everybody told me I couldn't, I wouldn't, whether that's coming to PwC as a school leaver because, quite frankly, if you tell anybody of my parents' generation I work at PwC, they assume you work in Canary Wharf, you're an accountant, and you're a graduate, none of which are true. So I think that this quote is something that has sort of motivated me throughout my life, and I find it really interesting. So it's by John Forbes, who was a Scottish physicist, so in no way a philosopher or in any way attached to the sociology of our communities now, but I think it still has resonance. When people rely on surface appearances and false stereotypes rather than in-depth knowledge of others at the level of the heart, mind, and spirit, their ability to assess and understand people is accurately compromised. And I think us as PwC employees, fundamentally, we are striving to do the right thing by our clients, our communities, and our people. For me, I believe that the easiest way to do that is to be able to actually truly understand the person. So if you take anything away from today, is just try for 1 minute when you meet someone new, you meet a new client, you go to the pub this evening, you meet someone else in the cohort or in the foundation program that you haven't met before, and try to look past their front of house face, because underneath, the underskin is potentially more vulnerable, but also more rewarding, and that is what creates lasting relationships. Thank you.